This is the second emergency summit on Ukraine that's been called for the 27 prime ministers and presidents of the European Council in just a week's time. I've been being told that the main reason, there are many reasons obviously that they need to come together and talk right now, but one of the main reasons is to make sure they're on the same page in terms of the next steps for sanctions. Almost everyone I talk to now thinks that we just had this first round of sanctions officially adopted just about an hour ago, and we're already looking at the second round of sanctions because it does look very likely that Russian forces are going to cross that line of control into Ukraine-controlled territory, and we're going to have conflicts between Russian troops and Ukrainian troops, and that will mean another round of sanctions. And particularly for those countries that are going to be very hard hit by these sanctions, they need to make sure that they're ready for that. There are some countries that want to go slow, that want the EU to really do incremental sanctions, and so that this next round of sanctions would be slight. And then there are other countries that want just the full thrust of the full package of sanctions right now. So if the Russian forces cross that line of control, they want basically the whole package to be adopted right now to show a really, really serious message to Russia. That's the main purpose of the Council tomorrow, just to make sure they're on the same page about this next round of sanctions, which everybody is now expecting.
And some express surprise that the EU was able to obtain unanimity on the first round. They were expecting outliers like Hungary to perhaps either abstain or be against.
Yeah, I mean, unanimity is a requirement for these types of foreign policy decisions, which makes adopting these things at EU level incredibly painful. And watching the sausage get made in that process is often very ugly because you have a lot of horse trading going on. So the fact that they adopted this first round in just 24 hours is really significant. And I'm being told that basically all 27 countries are on board for more sanctions. The question is when and how much. That's what they need to come together on. But for Hungary in particular, which you mentioned, we do have this kind of budding friendship between Viktor Orban and Vladimir Putin. However, the alliance between Hungary and Poland is much more important to Viktor Orban. And if Hungary tried to veto any of these rounds of sanctions, that would torpedo his alliance with Poland, which is much more important when it comes to internal EU affairs. It's really inconceivable that he would risk blowing up the Visegrad 4 group that is also with Czechia and Slovakia for the sake of a relationship with Putin, which is really just in formation. It's not really a strong alliance with stated goals yet. And then when it comes to Germany, of course, Germany has been really reluctant about sanctions so far, but it really feels like we've crossed a line here and that Berlin is really on board with sanctions now. Of course, we had the suspension of Nord Stream 2. That was a big step, a big surprise. And Germany is really ready for sanctions. Again, the question is on timing and severity.
And we're learning, before we let you go, David Keating, we're learning more on those first rounds of sanctions, in particular, targeting the defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, and Putin's chief of staff, Anton Viano.
Yeah, this on the sanctions list is the entirety of the lower house of the Russian parliament, all members, and then plus these 27 high-ranking politicians, business people, and military personnel. And we're getting the names trickling out now. They are very high names, very senior names, and that, of course, is in addition to the inability for the Russian state to raise sovereign debt on European markets, the inability for any EU entity or person to do business with the breakaway republics, a ban on banks financing, sanctions on banks financing the Russian military. So there's a whole big package here, and those names are going to be really interesting to watch in the coming hours.
Dave Keating reporting live from Brussels. Many thanks for that update.